So, to the present day, and the last King of Scotland's been in action over the last couple of days.
Ain't that appropriate?
Did you watch a couple of news conferences in full?
I did. And I'm telling you, I was sweating, I was laughing, I was crying. It was better than Hamlet. I'm telling you, listening to this man go off about how much he hates windmills and what he has against windmills, and sitting there talking to the head of the EU by saying, I know they hate windmills in your country. Are you kidding? You're telling a Dutch woman she hates windmills. I don't get it. He's just completely tone deaf, but it was really something. The amount of statistics that were made up just to make his point.
Well, no, she's German anyway, but they do have windmills in Germany.
Well, that's right,
especially the new ones.
That's right.
Lots of the new ones.
That's what I meant. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
But no, I know he was just like he would spout on anything. He seemed like he was ready, full flow, just ready to talk, and he didn't even kind of get upset in the way that he tends to do.
Yeah.
He was happy to speak about anything, and we'll bring some of those up this afternoon, certainly to get his view on the latest situations on various different things around the planet. And we need to start with a changing view, it seems. It's no longer 50 days. He's had a couple of weeks. Nothing really seems to have happened since the threat of major sanctions, 50 days away. So now President Putin is looking at 10 to 12 days to get that ceasefire off and running, or else.
Well, isn't this what we talked about a couple of weeks ago?
So glad to see.
When he said 50 days, and we said, well, what's going to keep Putin from doing whatever he wants and bombing at will and completely destroying...
Which he's continued to do.
Of course. And he's done exactly what we thought he might do. And we said, well, why would he not make the deadline a little quicker? And he did. And the big question is what's going to happen after 12 days. And my personal opinion is that nothing's going to happen.
You reckon?
No. That
Taco?
No. Taco. Yeah.
Trump chickens out again?
Taco, yeah. I just don't think that, and I think a lot of people also believe this, that Putin just doesn't care. I mean, he's not afraid of Trump. He's going to do what he needs to do, or what he thinks needs to be done, and it's just not good for anybody.
Well, the reaction: 22 people killed in Russian attacks on Ukraine overnight, 85 injured. So I think we kind of see what his thoughts on that, Putin's thoughts are. So 100% tariffs on Russia, but it's not really that one that we're really keen about. We're on about the secondary tariffs on the likes of India, who are an ally.
Yeah.
Who buy Russian oil and fund the war in Ukraine, but China, who are effectively an adversary, who buy Russian oil and fund the war in Ukraine. Can we see, really, will he go ahead with that? Major tariffs on those two. Very interesting to see. Great if he does.
And the U.S. does so much business with India and of course, with China. But as you say, China is not exactly a friend, but India very much is. And I do know from the first time he said that he was going to apply secondary tariffs, that they were very alarmed by this, because there are a lot of Indian products that make their way to the U.S. and charging 100% tariffs.
Well, Britain just did a deal as well with India, and I expected to hear more about the fact that they're funding their economy by using Russian oil and therefore supporting the war in Ukraine. And I was thinking, like, well, really, we should be talking about tariffs. We should be talking about deals.
Yeah. So I don't know what's going to happen in that whole thing, but I think the secondary tariffs is a good idea. He's doing everything to keep from having to get into any sort of conflict with Russia, any sort of military conflict. So I think the secondary tariffs at least is a good start. So he ought to just go ahead and do it, and just stop talking about it and stop saying, well, 50 days, 10 to 12 days, I'm going to do something. I mean, it's like having a bully facing you, going, if you don't do this, and I'm gonna haul off and whack you, and it just never happened. So
he just stopped short of saying that when he asked that Putin had actually been lying to him. He kind of pushed that away.
Took him a long time to figure that out, didn't it?
Yeah. But he said, can't see anything changing, so I'm going to bring, shorten up these days. Whether Sir Keir Starmer had anything to do with that at all or not, I don't know. I guess he knew that the questions were coming. Probably there were some briefings on Air Force One with his team on the way over to Britain saying, you're going to face this, you're going to face that. What are you going to do? You're going to need some answers. So
well, we also, remember a couple of weeks ago, we also heard that Melania was involved in this, where she was going, you're getting played on this.
Well, that was when he changed his mind in the first place, wasn't it? So, I mean, sooner rather than later, and more rather than less. But it's one to watch. I've not really seen him say too much about it so far today, but of course we've seen that Russian reaction overnight, the expected, sadly, reaction, really. Yep. Also, on that agenda yesterday, it was a lot of fallout, first off, before we get to the Gaza scenario, about the trade deal that the EU and Donald Trump pulled out of the bag on Sunday morning in Scotland.
Well, all these threats he was saying about it was going to be a 50% tariff, then it was going to be a 30% tariff, and then it was a 10% tariff, which is what the EU wanted. So they eventually settled on 15% for most items that are coming down, but there are exceptions. But I love that the Prime Minister of France, François Bayrou, said, I hope I was getting that right.
Not a happy Frenchman at all.
No, not happy, but he said it's a dark day when an alliance of free peoples brought together by affirm their common values and to defend their common interest resigns itself to submission. So they were not happy. He said it was a dark day. And
in line with Viktor Orban, of course, of Hungary, who wasn't very happy either. But the French and the Germans were like, okay.
Yeah, we're okay. And the Italians, of course, they had no problem with it.
Although he was disappointed, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said, it don't really affect us. I mean, it's about olives, basically. That's about it for Spain. They don't really do a lot of deals with the States.
So now I guess they all have to sign off on the deal, all 27. So we'll see what happens based on that. But certainly the EU...
it looks like it's going to be accepted, doesn't it, from the way, the reaction that we've seen?
Well, a lot of the countries in the EU are small countries, of course, and so...
I mean, there are other things that can be done. Maybe it's not like that's just like the headline, isn't it? So there's probably some other little details, other things to be worked out, and maybe along the way they might get a few little gains here and there. Bearing in mind that actually it's one of your biggest trading partners. The EU is one of the US's biggest trading partners. You thought they might have got a better deal.
I think that he feels that all he cares about is what the American public thinks. He thinks that he is going to come off as being a real strong man, and this is coming off as a real badass, and that he's going to put fear into the EU. And I think maybe
it looked like it worked.
Looks
really.
Like it worked. And he is, like, if you read any sort of written account or anybody who is on American or European television, they'll tell you that Trump was the big winner in this thing.
Yeah,
not the U.S., but Trump.
Trump.
Because he got exactly what he wanted. But at the end of the day, this is all about tariffs that the American public is paying for, and it's going to mean less olive oil, less orange juice, less, fewer cars and that sort of thing.
Maros Šefčovič, the European Commissioner for Trade, who was quite famous within the whole Brexit scenario as well, has been scurrying backwards and forth across the Atlantic. But he said that's just the best we could get under difficult circumstances.
Yeah, he really did put up the white flag, didn't he? That he didn't want to have to mess around with that. Apparently, Trump came into the meetings, from everything I've read, at 30%, and they had to negotiate him down to 15%. And they thought, well, we were lucky to get him down to 15%. And it's just scary how one person held all of the EU at bay just to his whims.
What are they saying? In a nutshell, 15% baseline tariffs on the EU exports to the US. Steel still being taxed at 50%. Car imports 37.5% can be sold from this Friday at 15%. That's kind of why some people are more happy than others, I guess.
Yeah, and they're still negotiating the whole thing about wine and spirits and food. That's going to have a lot to do with it.
Whiskey's a big thing.
Whiskey's a big thing, and so the big winner is Trump, and everybody else is the big loser. And I'm a little troubled by that, but there's nobody asked me, so I don't know.
We mentioned that the French weren't very happy about that.
No.
So the new U.S. tariffs from Friday,
and, right? August 1st. That was the new date.
That was the new date.
Yeah, the things that are going to be more expensive. clothing and footwear, because the vast majority of clothing and footwear sold in the U.S. is made in other countries. There's not a lot of clothing or textiles made in the U.S. A lot of them we get are from Vietnam, China, Bangladesh. But under the current plans, the U.S. is charging 30% on goods made in China, 19% on items in Vietnam and Indonesia. So, for stores like popular stores, where a lot of people shop, like Walmart, Target, that stuff is going to be a little less affordable. It's going to be affecting things like Levi Strauss and Nike, who have plants all around the world. Coffee, olive oil, other foods are going to be affected. And God, when coffee goes up 50%.
Oh, wow.
Because, they got a real problem with Brazil, and Trump's got a real problem with Brazil, and that has to do with their political situation. And when your cup of coffee at Starbucks is going up to $7, $8, $9, that's going to get people's attention.
A lot of people with caffeine withdrawal going on.
Yeah, I'm not a coffee drinker, so I don't really respond to this sort of thing. But I can understand where it would be.
Beer, wine, and spirits, however.
Beer, wine, and spirits. However, hello. But anyhow, that's. Things like imports of Irish whiskey and other wines from France and Spain. That's going to be a little more problematic.
And cars we mentioned, of course. So some winners, some losers, and they are saying, aren't they, that this is it. He ain't going to chicken out. There's going to be no taco on the 1st of August stuff.
So. I guess not. I'm really concerned about, the car thing really bothers me. American car industry uses parts from all over the world. A lot of the cars are built in several different countries. A lot of them are built in Mexico and in Canada, and kind of assembled
Mexico
in the U.S.
Well,
yeah. And so we'll see what happens with that. I'm really concerned with housing. The fact that there's a 50% tariff on copper. That starts August 1st. The National Association of Home Builders has warned that the measures could increase the cost of building homes. And it's already hard enough for Americans to find homes, to buy homes, to build homes. Most of American homes are made of wood, unlike here in Spain, where they're not using wood. But most of the wood that the U.S. gets comes out of Canada. And because of the high tariffs on Canadian oil, Canadian wood, it's a really
so all this stuff
situation.
Looks like it's going to come home to roost then at the end of the week. And the impact that's going to have on people is quite dramatic. So much so that he's going to face a major court test, Donald Trump, brought by U.S. small business owners, who, of course, will be the first to be going out of business.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that there's a lawsuit that's being filed on behalf of the Small Business Association to try and get all of these tariffs stopped, saying that Trump really does not have the authority to do this, and how much it's really going to kill off a lot of small businesses in the U.S. So I just think this is the first of a lot of lawsuits that we're going to be seeing, maybe even all the way up to the Supreme Court. I
mean, yeah, because there is that law that he's been using, that 1977 law, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which he's claiming there are various national emergencies, U.S. trade deficits with trading partners, and, of course, fentanyl trafficking, which we keep hearing about. Sure. So under those guises, under that law, is how he is pushing these tariffs through.
Yeah, you keep saying that this is an emergency situation, which clearly it is not. The country is doing quite well financially, as are a lot of countries.
Also, there's some discrepancies there on whether that law does give the president the power.
That's right. That's right.
That's the crux of the challenge.
Exactly. That's the crux of things that's going to go all the way to the Supreme Court. So
interesting to watch, which of course we will, with our U.S. correspondent, Rich Reynolds. Now, we were talking about that press conference yesterday and what I suppose was a bonus win, if you can put it that way, for Sir Keir Starmer, finally getting Donald Trump to talk in some detail about the situation in Gaza. It's been brewing for a while. He wasn't really listening to other people. He seemed to have listened on that flight from the States, where he knew he'd be facing more questions, or perhaps talking to Sir Keir Starmer. But yesterday, very, very clear and saying very, very different things than Benjamin Netanyahu.
I love the fact that Starmer's got his ear. I love the fact that Starmer's saying...
Yeah, they're different from political divides, but they get on, and Trump likes it.
They really do, and he has said some truthful things and really has struck at Trump's heart. And if you've looked at any of the footage, it's heartbreaking coming out of there and seeing all the people who were starving, and then to hear Netanyahu, on the other hand, say there is no starvation. I don't know what you people are watching. We're all watching the same thing. I don't know what he's watching, but that the fact that he told reporters that he's going to set up food centers, he's going to do it in conjunction with some other groups. If he hadn't gotten rid of U.S. aid, he wouldn't have to be doing anything special because U.S. aid would have been jumping in and helping out. But also there's a real problem with
it's getting the food in.
It's getting the food.
It's not like there wasn't food, because
problem.
there's so many, as we've seen from the pictures. There are all those food trucks on the border. The problem is they just couldn't get the food in. Some food was getting in, but nowhere near enough.
Yeah, that's true. And even to the point now where 21 Senate Democrats are demanding that Trump stop funding this controversial Gaza aid organization that has resulted in the killings of about 700 civilians.
And it's also just the way that was set up.
Yeah.
It just didn't work. There were a lot fewer sites, and some of the stories that were coming out from what was happening at those sites, absolutely terrible. And whereas before, of course, there were a lot more places where people could go. They weren't being subjected to the sort of issues that they were before. 21 senators getting involved on that particular charity that's funding that's going on right now. But of course, we're talking about lots of other charities, and we're waiting to get in to be able to fund the crisis.
It's just this one particular charity, and since they launched it in May.
That's the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation.
Correct.
There's been a lot of media coverage about it, at how it just isn't doing the job that it was designed to do in the way that is, well...
Yeah, and they said that 4 of the distribution sites have become killing fields.
Indeed.
And where people are going to pick up food and end up getting shot or...
That's what I was alluding to. We've all seen the news reports, and we've all heard the allegations, none of which have been proven yet, of course, but some of the people that have been talking about what they've seen happening there sounds absolutely awful. But yeah, they're right to perhaps call this up and see what can be done about that particular charity. But as we said, hopefully now a lot of the others will get in. They're talking about aid drops. Spain also talking about their own Air Force flying in from Jordan to drop aid on Friday, which is quite unusual to see something like that. Normally it's all coordinated on the ground, and local officials and local air forces take care of that. But the Spanish quite adamant that they want to do something. They know something needs to happen. He needs to happen now. They've quite good relationships with the King of Jordan, and they're just going to do it.
Well, it looks like things might be cooling between Trump and Netanyahu just a little bit over this whole thing because, as we said, Netanyahu was saying there is no starvation, there is no crisis in Gaza when clearly there is, and Trump is finally reacting, and he's trying to do something positive for the first time in his administration regarding Gaza, and so it's all heading in the right direction. It's just a matter of getting the food to them in time.
Yeah, I mean, of course, just these aid drops from air. Okay, an aircraft full of aid. It's a drop in the ocean. Literally, it's not enough.
That's exactly right.
To help the situation on the ground. They really need to get those things coming in via road as well. As 2 leading Israeli human rights groups have accused the country of genocide in Gaza. Up until now, it's been other countries and other people saying that, but to now have your own human rights group saying it, it's forcing the issue. Something is being done. Sadly, it's going to be way too late for a heck of a lot of people, but some aid centres are saying that things are starting to happen. So
good. It's all good news.
Look at this, Justin. A gulf in understanding between the EU and US on what was agreed on Donald Trump's golf course has been opened up less than 48 hours after the US President and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen shook hands. US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick hit the US airwaves to declare the deal was a sensational victory over the EU and a masterclass in the art of the deal. But some details he shared with CNBC and referred to on the White House text of the deal are not part of the EU's understanding of what's on the table before tariffs are expected to come in on Friday, we're hearing. So, yeah, it's not all over yet.
It is not all over. Not all. It's all over except for the shouting.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Taxing tech, one of the big weapons the EU were considering in the event of a trade war, with officials repeatedly telling reporters it had the right to decide its own laws. A spokesman repeated this today. We have the sovereign right to legislate in our digital area, and we will do it. There's no version of digital in the EU's version, apparently.
No, I don't know.
Yay. All right, yeah, it's going to give us more column inches, nevertheless.
Yep.
With our US correspondent this afternoon, Rich Reynolds. So, the questions were obviously going to continue, as we highlighted last week, about the Jeffrey Epstein scandal, as it's now being known, into its, fifth week since its reappearance in the main media as far as Donald Trump is concerned. He, again, sought to put distance between himself and Epstein, but just started talking about all kinds of stuff that he hadn't even been asked about.
I know, and he really did bring this on himself. He just said, initially he said that the reason they had a falling out was because they had a deal that went bad, and now he's saying the reason they had a falling out was because Epstein tried to poach a couple of his...
Apparently he poached some stuff before, and he said, don't do it again, and he did it again.
Yeah.
This is what he's saying this time.
Yeah, so he said, I threw him out. He was gone.
We didn't talk again after that, apparently.
But he said... but you're absolutely right. He started to talk about
talking about the island. I was invited to the island, but I didn't go. And then he said something like Clinton went 20-odd times.
Yeah, which there's no proof.
There isn't.
No, there's no proof that anybody was there. But there seems to be more growing proof that there is some sort of a diary or some sort of a book that a list, as we said. And so we'll see what happens on this one. I think this is going to get worse before it gets better for him. But every time he opens his mouth, he says something about it. This is right after he says, I don't want to talk about this. Then he can't help himself. And you and I were talking off air that poor Keir Starmer was just sitting there just let this guy hang himself. He took the noose, threw it over the...
I doubt there was much he could have said over this anyway, so he couldn't really even help him out. So a larger problem for Trump then... in this Epstein chaos, and not even helping himself then. So why are they saying it's a larger problem?
Well, I don't know. I just think the fact that he said, I never had the privilege of going to the island. He said that.
I know. What strange words he uses sometimes.
I was watching this going, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You just almost indicted yourself. He said, I turned it down. A lot of people in Palm Beach were invited to this island. In my very good moments, I turned it down. I don't know. It's, the heat is on, so they say.
Okay. We did say it's, even though they're going to recess for the summer and what have you, this certainly isn't going to, I don't think at all. Right. Meanwhile, Ghislaine Maxwell is back in the news as well, asking the US Supreme Court to overturn her conviction. She reckons that the plea deal that she negotiated should have protected her. This, of course, as she's been talked to again by recently about the situation, trying to find out again, I suppose, about the supposed list.
Yeah, this is the deal. What happens is that...
The plea bargain, no?
Exactly. Epstein had negotiated something before he killed himself, who said that, he had a certain amount of immunity. That being said, he was going to be spending the rest of his life in jail, but he made certain deals with the courts, and she says, I should have the same deal that he did before she says anything. But, she was... spoken to by Todd Branch, who is the assistant district attorney, and I think that's right.
They wanted to turn her into what's known as a government cooperator, right?
Yeah, and apparently she spilled the beans, and she had no problem saying what they wanted her to say. But the point that I need to make is that she also is a known liar, and that's you can have to take everything she says with a grain of salt. I'm not really sure by her indicting Trump or indicting Clinton or anybody else who apparently went to this island is going to really hold much water. But certainly, she seems to be willing to talk. But whether or not she gets the same deal that Jeffrey Epstein got, it remains to be seen. I know that's, Epstein had a deal with one state, and now she is in a completely different state. So.
Okay. More to come over the summer, I'm sure. Yep. On to other things then, and new FEMA grants are going to be handed out for companies to build new migrant detention facilities. We're talking about huge amounts of money here, some $600 million. I mean, ultimately, I've seen it goes into the billions.
Yeah, it's almost $1 billion, and what's happening here is that this is money that has been trimmed from states being able to use this for actual emergencies, hurricanes and floods and that sort of thing. They've taken that money back. Remember, they originally said they were going to get rid of FEMA, and then they said, the White House said, no, we're just going to retool it a little bit. And so what happens is they took a lot of that money and they're using it to build these prisons like the Alligator Alcatraz and other areas where it's meant to for these illegals that they seem to be pulling in off.
Why does it cost $1.26 billion to build a tent facility at an army base? Yeah. Surely you just get the guys to do it. Normally that's what happens, normally.
Yeah. So, there was... they gave, ICE was also given $45 billion to detain migrants, and everything is about detention and striking fear into all of these migrants, and that's where a lot of the money is going. So.
Okay. Meanwhile, we're not averse to an overnight rant. We got them in Scotland as well. A few people in the spotlight. I was highlighting Beyonce yesterday on the program. Oprah and Kamala Harris also getting the dig from Donald in Scotland.
Yeah, he's sending out texts and all sorts of messages in the middle of the night saying that Beyonce was paid $11 million to endorse Harris. And
there is no truth in that, by the way.
Even though, of course not. And he said she never sang not even one note and left the stage to a booing and angry audience. Yeah, I'm sure the audience was booing Beyonce. I've never seen that happen. They're saying that...
there was some exchange of money, nothing near like that figure, but that was for the production company who put on the show. Right. She wasn't paid.
Right, that's right. And he also was claiming that the Democrats paid $3 million in expenses, in quotes, to Oprah and $600,000 to civil rights activist Al Sharpton. There's no evidence that any of the people named received any of this money.
I like his capitals on Truth Social again. Yeah. You are not allowed to pay for an endorsement. It's totally illegal to do so. Is it?
Is it? I don't know. I don't know if it is. I mean, he's kind of making up the law as he goes along. And Oprah said she's not paid a dime, and I believe Oprah. And Harris, she was never paid a dime to endorse Harris. And so the people who worked on that production needed to be paid, and they were. End of story, says Oprah. And that's it. I mean, there was quite a bit of production being done for, prior to the conventions. So...
All right, we've got a little bit of time to get in. We've got about 4 stories left. I do want to talk about this, though. 2 FDA-approved drugs found to reverse Alzheimer's, and get this, including restoring memory.
This is my favorite story of the week, and I must tell you that the story comes from the New York Post, which can often be a very dicey publication. It's for those people who don't know, it's a Murdoch publication. They really lean very, very heavily to the right. The Democrats can do no right, and the Republicans can do no wrong. But this is an interesting story that researchers have found that a pair of drugs can slow down Alzheimer's disease and actually reverse it and restore memory. And this is published in a medical paper. The best part of it says that both of the drugs are FDA approved, albeit for cancer, and it's similar to Ozempic and the way Ozempic was for something else. And there are a lot of drugs that were things that were done for one purpose and ended up with another. But researchers have been long looking at a way to reverse Alzheimer's, and now they may have come up with something that can slow down Alzheimer's and actually reverse it. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully, like you say, if they're already approved, then it might see some differences being made on the ground, as it were, pretty quickly. We've talked about a number of issues involving deaths, shootings, stabbings, not least the situation with an automatic shotgun in New York City. But you did want to focus on the stabbing of 11 people at Walmart in Michigan. It looks like perhaps it's a terrorist situation, this one.
They're investigating right now as to whether or not it is a terrorist situation, but a guy had an open pocket knife and he was going through a Walmart in Michigan, just supposedly randomly stabbing people. And the interesting thing is that the guy was out in the parking lot and he was cornered by some Good Samaritans who happened to have a pistol, and they kept the guy at bay until the police could arrive. And
somebody ran into him with a shopping cart.
Took a shopping cart and ran into him and kept him from advancing. But the guy is 42 years old, facing charges of terrorism and assault to intent with murder with these 11 shoppers. But the good news is that it looks like all 11 are going to be doing quite well. And as you said,
number of other incidents over the last 24 to 48 hours.
2 people
right
shot and killed in Arkansas in a state park. And, the
NFL shooting in New York City as well. And that guy was just walking around with a submachine gun.
Right, walking around down
New York City.
Walking down Park Avenue with a submachine gun. And he is not on this earth anymore. But he did shoot a policeman and I believe 1 or 2 others who did not survive. So that one had a very, very sad ending. Yeah, the world has absolutely gone insane.
Totally has.
That's the only way to describe it.